Hey everyone, welcome to Shey's Way Tax Tip Tuesday. Hopefully everybody's had a good start to the beginning of the week, all of that good stuff. As you guys know, I was just down in the islands, went down to the Bahamas for a couple days, really just to sharpen the saw. It was a conference, a little bit of work, a whole lot of sun, but some really good events. I'm going to share some information today. And if you guys want, I'm going to give all the credit where credit is due. Work and life, we're always, again, trying to sharpen the saw, glean some information for some good people out there. And I had the opportunity to be in the room for a great speaker. His name is Jeff Bush, and you can find him at thewashingtonupdate.com. Really good guy, really enjoyed his presentation. And I'm just looking at his bio. You can go there. Again, it's thewashingtonupdate.com. I'm going to give him all the credit. He was kind enough to share his slides from his presentation that I'm going to talk a little bit about, just because I think it's just good information for us to talk about and for me to share with you guys. But his bio, Jeff was he's a dynamic, insightful speaker, author, known for his unique ability to translate difficult and confusing information coming out of Washington, D.C. into winning growth strategies for business owners, executives, and high net worth investors. He's been the principal of Washington Update for a number of years, just a wealth of knowledge, really good information that he shared with us. What I found interesting in preparing a little bit for today is just how he probably spoke for an hour before he got into a little bit of the nuggets that I gleaned. And then finally, he threw up a couple slides and I went, oh, that just ties into everything that we talk about here on my show and some other people that I know a number of people follow all over the country. Again, hopefully everyone is having a great week. So before I jump in, again, giving my little bit of a disclosure, obviously I'm going to share some information from Jeff's presentation. And again, they're not my slides, they're his slides. I'm going to give him all the credit that he deserves. But on today's show, obviously the material that I'm going over, I'm sharing, it's for a webinar, it's prepared for informational purposes only. It's not intended to provide legal, accounting, tax, or investment advice. Consult with your own people regarding tax, legal, and accounting advisors if you have them. If you don't have them, get with me. And I work with some very quality people all over the country that I can introduce you to. And we'll talk a little bit about the protection, the investment, and the tax component of your overall financial plan today, and then try to tie it back in. And before I jump in on any additional other topics there, just want to make sure that I highlight, and I did have an opportunity to look at last week's webinar, and the gentleman who edits those for me did a great job. I don't want to ever lose sight of The Power of Zero. It's a book. I didn't write it. It was written by David McKnight. Highly recommend that if you have not read it, get the book and read it. It's a whopping 160 pages long. If you sit down cover to cover with no distractions and no kids or dogs jumping in your lap, you'll blow through it in about 90 minutes. So, and what I find interesting about it, well, a lot, but mainly the tax component of it, and whether or not you believe tax rates are going to be higher or lower than they are today. And everything that I believe will be that the tax rates are only going in one direction, and that is not in our best interest. So again, highly recommend you get the book, The Power of Zero, and read the book. And if you want to have some conversations with it, awesome. Charles, good to see you. David, always glad to have you with us. Kyle and Mark and Mike and everybody. There's a number of others here that just a couple new names that I don't recognize, which is great. So I'm happy that somebody's sharing the information with you, or you're getting here and getting some information. So again, if you've got any Q&A, throw it into the question or the Q&A box. If you chat, that's fine. I'll try to get to those also. No right or wrong time for questions. Just throw something in there if you've got something pressing on your mind. I also wanted to make a mention outside of the Power Zero. Last week, we talked about why we talk so much about using protection strategies, whether it be permanent life insurance or asset-based long-term care, and really boiled that back into how those different strategies and products are looked at under the IRC tax code and why we talk about them so much, because they sidestep what is known as provisional income in the IRC tax code. So again, that ties back into the Power of Zero. And so highly recommend that you get that. So again, I'm borrowing Jeff Bush's slides. Again, he was kind enough to send them to me. And he also has kind of a monthly article or monthly newsletter that you can submit to and glean that also from time to time. So again, highly recommend that. So as we talk about a little, and it's a little bit down the road, we're talking about the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that is going to expire year end of 2025. And it's significant. It's not something that all of us do every day regarding tax returns, looking at tax returns, uploading them. I mean, I do that probably more than most, but I thought this was important information as we're going into a political year next year, and how year end 2025 will be here before we know it, and how the different sunset laws of what Congress may and or may not do will affect all of us. So just a couple different bullet points real quick. First of all, marginal rates, return to prior levels. So that's significant. There's a couple other slides that we're going to hit talking about that. The standard deduction expires. Pretty near and dear to me and working with some higher net worth people all over the country, but the estate tax exemption, really there's been very little, if any, talk about having some type of an estate tax issue, just because of the exemptions are north of $12 million per person. So you're looking at almost $25 million estate for a husband and a wife. So anything less than that, then you really don't need to be getting into detailed trust law or having some type of estate planning attorney develop comprehensive plans to sidestep having the government tax some type of death in the family. So, however, again, year end 2025, that exemption really goes in half, adjusted for inflation, but still comes down. So that's something that you may want to think about. There's a couple other bullet points here that I'm not going to read to you guys all day long, but one, the capital gains rate was not affected. So I think that that's important for people to remember. The AMT comes back into play year end 2025. So I wanted to bring that to your attention also. Secondary to that, as we get into looking at the individual income tax rates, and I thought this was an important slide to share with you guys, where the Tax Cut and Jobs Act really benefited most of us in regards to the different tax rates that, regardless if you're single or married filing jointly, can affect you. So, there's, a 24 to 28 jump there, where I think there's a significant amount of the population that are in that income tax range or that income range of 180 to 350,000, 340,000. And then you bump up into that 33% also. So I just wanted to share that with you because those rates are going to, are significant and will change also. This was a pretty good slide that I thought needed the attention give it the attention it deserves, if you will, in regards to joint income and the significant percentage increase that we were affected with regarding our income. So when you start looking at 16-18% increases from the tax standpoint, that affects all of our pocketbooks. So I thought this was a pretty good slide to share. And then, when we talk about a little bit of the political environment, and again, Jeff did a great job with his background, bringing this kind of home, and what's going to happen if the GOP wins control in 2024. Likely, they'll just try to extend TCJA for an additional 8 years. The bad problem, in my opinion, is the Dems, they don't really care. They may just let some things expire. So if the Dems win control 2024, it'll be selective in what provisions they let expire and or extend, and then if there's a split, some of the elements of both, likely depending on the Dem changes, that were made back in 2022. So then we start talking about marginal income tax rates. And you guys have heard me talk a lot about whether or not you believe marginal income tax rates are going to be higher or lower in the future. And when you look back, again, we none of us like paying any more than we need to in regards to taxes. And that's why we talk a lot about using alternative investment strategies, alternative protection strategies, whether it be life insurance, asset-based long-term care, alternative investments, Roth conversions. Pay your taxes today, don't defer and pay them later on in life when chances are they're going to be higher. If you walk down the road and run into just about anyone and ask them how they feel about tax rates, it's always, they've never been worse than they are today. Working with different retirees, their dollars aren't stretching as far as they have in the past. Obviously, the inflationary environment that we're in right now doesn't help any of us. But when you look at the highest marginal tax rates in this country going all the way back to 1913, we're not in a bad environment. On average, that average of 57% is a little bit staggering, and I had never really seen a slide that averaged it out that way. I felt, again, good enough to share this one with you. And then when you start talking about marginal versus average or effective tax rate, when you start looking at your return, in 14, the top 1% of the U.S. households paid an average of 36.4. And again, when you start doing your average, and this is where I personally, with regards to my office, where we're doing, where I have a CPA, a tax attorney inside my office, where we're looking at doing comprehensive tax planning strategy for people, then you start looking at what is the average effective tax rate. And to make math easy for us on today's show, if we're looking at doing some type of Roth conversion, and let's just say that, when you put everything into the pot and stir it all around, you come out and you might be at a 20% effective tax rate. Well, you have to ask yourself, does it make sense to possibly look at doing a Roth conversion this year, next year, whatever it may be, at $100,000, and you've got to come up and pay 20% on that $100,000. So you got to pay $20,000 to the government to be able to reposition $100,000 of assets from one pocket over to another pocket, maybe traditional IRA over to Roth. But you have to ask yourself, when are you going to be in a 20% tax bracket in the future? And again, if you're doing different tax planning, different tax strategies, and getting that effective rate down, possibly even to the 15s, 14s, or even lower, the chances of you being at that rate at some point in time in the future are very, very slim. So by repositioning that $100,000 over from a taxable environment into a tax-free environment, then you can invest it, grow it, and then you're never back on the hook to pay the taxes. Everyone's situation is going to end up being a little bit different, but looking at converting or moving assets from a taxable environment to a non-taxable environment is something that we talk about frequently. Strategies for investors to consider. And this is where I wanted to spend a little bit of time, because here's a guy, Jeff Bush, that I hadn't had the pleasure of meeting before or even hearing a presentation from him, yet he gets it. Where he starts looking at strategies for investors to consider incorporating tax managed solutions. And I talked a little bit about this last week, and I put up a pie chart where most people have ordinary income. Most people are going to have some real estate investment. I personally work with a lot of entrepreneurs that have their own business or their own medical practice. And we talk about asset location and utilizing some type of strategy or product that sidesteps what the government is going to do. And you look at Jeff's couple bullet points here. He looked at possibly consider using annuities for locking in gains and tax timing. And right now, not a bad idea. There's a number of annuities out there with different carriers that give you the ability to do just that. We talk a lot about using some amount, a small sliver of permanent life insurance inside your overall portfolio allocation, and life insurance here for possible tax-free income, hedging tax liability and GST funding, and even threw in some long-term care there. So those are all different strategies that we talk about probably 3 out of 4 Tuesdays on a monthly basis. Then we just talked a little bit about Roth conversions and how those can be implemented into what you may and or may not be doing right now. And again, if you're waiting till November, December to get with your CPA regarding your tax strategy, you're missing the boat. You should be talking with your CPA or your tax strategist, on a quarterly basis, and certainly in Q1 and Q2, and not wait until the end of the year. So calculate the Roth conversions, implement before an increase in rates, use the backdoor Roth if you can. Roth allows for a 10-year deferral before payout for post-inheritance. So again, looking at the Roth conversions is a big deal. Overfunding 529 plans for future Roth conversions. Certainly, if you are grandparents or parents that have large estates, and they can significantly remove assets out of your estate by funding 529 plans for children and or grandchildren. So that's another great strategy to use that I thought Jeff was on point by recommending. Here's a little bit strategies for investors considered. Again, bullet number 2, assess long-term care needs, consider hedging to avoid estate depletion. There's a number of times where I'm talking with people where I may say, do you believe you're ever going to spend through your estate? Most of the time, there's a big pause and a no. And then any type of catastrophic health event that does not kill you, you can blow through a sizable estate in a very short period of time by taking care of a spouse and or if you were to have some type of long-term care event. Another strategy there is possibly, again, moving assets out of a taxable environment over into a tax-free environment depending on the different carrier that you may use. The 4th bullet, reevaluate trust structures. Again, that goes back into the unified credit and what Congress may do with the death tax. So maximizing the 24% tax bracket through 2025 is another big deal. Again, you've got basically 2 more tax years to be able to do that. Make sure that you're taking as many strategies into place so you can get down into that 24 with as much as you possibly can. Again, I just want to kind of share a number of these slides because we talk quite a bit about this stuff on a weekly basis. This was a pretty good quote that Senator Joe Manchin just had a few months ago. You can't basically just tax your way out of the debt. You can't borrow your way out of the debt, and you can't cut your way out of the debt. Congress is not looking to really do anything regarding the debt. They're paying the interest and that's it. And they have absolutely no plan whatsoever to start looking at the principal amount of debt that our country is under. And until they look at that comprehensively, nothing much, in my opinion, is going to change. Just want to share a little bit of that. I'm going to stop sharing here and take a peek on did that spark any questions, any comments from anyone out there regarding that material? And I say that mainly I've got a couple cases that I'm working on right now that are still in the sophisticated confusion world of not really understanding how to design either your long-term care or your life insurance strategy to effectively, first and foremost, take care of your family, and then second, use it as an asset and certainly not a debt. Any questions on that? please throw into the Q&A, and we'll get to it. Again, giving Jeff Bush credit for that information, the Washington Update and his website, again, thewashingtonupdate.com. I checked it out. Very well done. Again, you can subscribe to his insights, in his newsletter that can be delivered to you electronically for you to continue following a little bit of that. Yeah, the business of AI is finally getting some attention out there. So good thing that I actually ran across today a little bit. Inflation kind of getting a little bit under control. I guess it's down a little bit. Saw a report that came out on that today. I know that prime is still north of 8%. So if you're looking at borrowing money or whatnot, again, right now, I would tell you that using your life insurance policies out there rather than going to the bank, it's a great time and a great environment to do that. If you're not, or if you have policies out there that have large amounts of cash value in them, that may be something that you want to take a look at, using those assets either for investing and or lending and or paying off some higher interest debt and then recapturing that inside your policy. Again, it's something that that if you're not doing, maybe take a look at that. Guys, that's the material that I really wanted to share today with you guys. Again, it's about 1:30, so we're going a little bit short today, which is fine. It's a short week. If you're really interested in anything going on down in Miami, Florida today with the indictment of former President Trump, that's heating up over here on Fox News to my left. An interesting day in the history of our political environment. Again, if you weren't on last week, take a look at last week's video. It is up on my YouTube channel at Brian Shey on YouTube. If you haven't got there, click on the bell, like it, subscribe it, and then as I post things, you'll get notified. So every Tuesday we do this live. By Thursday, they're normally up on my YouTube channel. And then secondary to that, if you're not getting there, you can get them on sterlingwyatt.com under the webinar podcast tile on my website. You can get there also. So other than that, you guys are evidently having a good week. Continue to not follow the herd or not follow the crowd in regards to your financial endeavors. I'm going to sign off and get with you guys next Tuesday. Have a great rest of the week. Be safe out there, and I'll see you next week. Take care.